All right, ready to dive deep today?
Always.
We're tackling Mark Manson's The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Feck.
Ooh, that's a good one.
It sounds kind of provocative, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
But trust me, this isn't your average self-help book.
Definitely not.
It's not about, like, being a jerk or anything.
Right. Totally different.
It's more about being intentional with your energy.
Choosing what you care about.
Exactly.
And accepting that life's not always going to be sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah, he's all about embracing the imperfections, the struggles.
That's where the real growth happens, he says.
Right. Like, kind of counterintuitive.
For sure. But it makes you think.
Oh, absolutely. He really challenges those conventional self-help ideas.
He flips the script, for sure.
One of the things that really stuck with me was this idea of the feedback loop from hell.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. I think everyone's been there.
Have you ever noticed how sometimes you feel bad and then you feel bad about feeling bad?
Oh, all the time.
Yeah.
It's like a downward spiral.
That's exactly it.
You get stuck in your head.
And then it just gets worse and worse.
It's like you're adding fuel to the fire.
And Manson says the key to breaking free from that cycle is to, well, not give a feck about feeling bad.
Not in a heartless way, though.
Right. It's not about suppressing your emotions or becoming numb.
It's more about recognizing that negative feelings are normal.
Everyone experiences them.
Yeah, as part of being human.
It's like giving yourself permission to feel those feelings without judgment.
Exactly, like acknowledging them, but not letting them control you.
He points out that a lot of this stems from societal pressures.
And honestly, social media doesn't help.
Oh, totally. You're constantly bombarded with these perfect, curated lives.
Everyone's always on vacation or getting promotion,
Or showing off their amazing relationships.
and you start to compare yourself.
And feel like you're not enough.
It's a recipe for that feedback loop from hell, for sure.
And that's where Manson's idea of having a limited number of fucks to give comes in.
Ah, yes. Love that concept. So insightful.
It's like we only have so much energy and attention.
We can't care about everything equally,
Exactly. We have to be selective.
so we got to prioritize
Figure out what truly matters to us.
and then let go of the rest.
He uses this hilarious example in the book about a grandma in a grocery store.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
She's like fiercely defending her 30-cent coupon.
Like it's the most important thing in the world.
And his point is that our fucks are often dictated by what else is going on in our lives.
Right, if someone's feeling lost or unfulfilled.
Even a tiny coupon can feel like a huge deal.
Yeah, it's like they're clinging to whatever they can.
It's funny, but it makes you think, right?
Absolutely.
Are we getting all worked up over things that don't really matter?
Like, are we letting those small things steal our joy?
When we could be focusing on what truly matters?
How do we decide what's worth caring about?
That's the big question.
Right, what are those things we should be giving our fucks to?
Well, that's where Chapter 4, The Value of Suffering, gets really interesting.
Oh, this one's a game changer.
It might sound kind of counterintuitive.
Like, why would we want to value suffering?
Exactly. But Manson reframes it.
He doesn't see it as something to avoid at all costs.
It's more like a potential catalyst for growth and change.
A necessary part of life.
He even starts the chapter with the story of the Buddha.
Ah, yeah. Who initially tried to eliminate suffering completely.
But through his
He
experiences,
realized that it's just not possible.
suffering is inherent to life.
It's something we all have to face,
And it's only through confronting it.
that we can find true enlightenment.
Or, as Manson puts it, learn and grow.
Right. It's all about how we choose to respond to suffering.
This reminds me of something else he said
What's that?
about the biological function of suffering.
Yeah, like how pain serves a purpose.
Exactly. Think about it. When you stub your toe, it hurts like crazy, right?
Oh, yeah, you bet.
But that pain tells you to be more careful next time.
It's like a signal, a warning.
Exactly. Or think about social rejection.
Ooh, that one stinks.
It hurts emotionally.
But it can motivate us to improve our social skill.
To connect with people who value us.
It's like our pain, both physical and emotional.
It's like a signal that something needs to change.
Exactly. But the problem is
We often try to avoid pain instead of listening to it.
we numb ourselves with distractions.
We try to find quick fixes.
But we end up stuck on what psychologists call the hedonic treadmill.
The hedonic treadmill. What's that?
Picture a hamster wheel.
Okay, got it.
You're running and running.
But going nowhere.
Exactly. That's what the hedonic treadmill is like. You're constantly chasing happiness.
But never quite reaching it.
We get that new car, that promotion.
But the satisfaction is fleeting.
It's never enough.
We're always looking for the next thing to make us happy.
Right. And Manson argues that true happiness,
Doesn't come from avoiding pain.
it comes from choosing the right struggles.
based on our values.
It's about finding meaning and purpose in the challenges we face.
So the question isn't, how can I avoid suffering?
It's, what pain am I willing to endure?
What am I willing to fight for, even if it means discomfort?
Powerful question.
Right. It's a whole different way of thinking about life.
Instead of trying to avoid pain,
We choose the pain that aligns with our values.
the pain that leads to growth and fulfillment.
Which brings us to another important point Manson makes
What's that?
about the self-esteem movement.
Ah, yes. Chapter 3, you are not special.
He's pretty critical of it.
Yeah, he thinks all this emphasis on feeling good about ourselves can backfire.
It can lead to entitlement
Unrealistic expectations.
and a lack of accountability.
He tells this story about Jimmy.
Oh, Jimmy, the businessman.
Yeah, he's obsessed with projecting an image of success
Even though his life's falling apart,
behind the facade
he's so caught up in appearing special.
that he avoids dealing with his real problems.
And Manson argues that this need to feel special.
Can be amplified by social media.
Oh, for sure.
Everyone's showcasing their highlight reel.
So we start to believe that everyone else is leading these extraordinary lives.
And we feel inadequate.
It's like we're not measuring,
It's a recipe for anxiety and self-doubt.
and it distracts us from what truly matters.
Living a meaningful life based on our own values.
Not on some external measure of success.
Right. It's not about being special in the eyes of others
It's about being authentic to ourselves.
and embracing our imperfections.
That's where true self-worth comes from.
Yeah, it's not about being perfect.
It's about being real.
And that's a lot more fulfilling.
I think that's a great place to pause for now.
Definitely a lot to think about.
We've covered so much already.
From the feedback loop from hell
To the hedonic treadmill.
and the dangers of feeling special.
It's been a wild ride so far,
Buckle up for part 2, everyone.
where we'll delve even deeper into the subtle art of not giving a feck
We'll explore more counterintuitive ideas from Mark Manson.
and see how they can help us live more meaningful lives.
So stay tuned.
And don't forget to bring your thinking caps.
See you soon.
Bye for now.
Bye. So, we were talking about how important it is to be authentic to ourselves.
And how that ties into Manson's ideas about saying no,
Right, chapter 8. It's all about setting boundaries.
defining ourselves not just by what we embrace, but by what we reject.
Exactly. And you know what? That reminds me of your trip to Russia.
Oh, yeah. Their culture is known for being pretty blunt.
No sugarcoating, huh?
Not at all. It was a bit jarring at first.
I bet. So different from how we usually communicate.
But honestly, I found it really liberating.
How so?
Well, they just tell it like it is.
No beating around the bush.
If they thought you were wrong, they'd tell you straight up.
Wow, that's direct.
It was, but it was also refreshing.
It sounds like you experienced the power of clear boundaries.
Yeah, it's like by being willing to say no,
And to hear no.
you create more honest relationships.
More authentic connections.
Exactly. And Manson argues that this is crucial for developing strong values.
He uses the example of Romeo and Juliet to illustrate this.
Oh yeah, the star-crossed lovers.
What do they have to do with saying no?
Well, Manson deconstructs this romanticized notion of love,
The whole love conquers all idea.
and he highlights the potential for unhealthy dynamics in relationships.
Right, like when love becomes about neediness.
Or a fear of being alone.
It's not about clinging to someone,
It's about supporting each other's growth.
even if it means setting boundaries.
And sometimes saying no.
Because true love requires both connection and individuality.
Right. You can't truly love someone if you haven't embraced yourself.
And Manson also talks about these roles people often fall into.
In unhealthy relationships.
Yeah, the victim and the saver.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
The victim seeks someone to rescue them.
And the saver feels the need to fix their partner.
It's a cycle that can be really damaging.
Because both people are avoiding their own issues.
They're feeding off each other's dysfunction.
The victim avoids responsibility.
And the saver gets validation from fixing them.
It's like a form of emotional manipulation.
That prevents both people from growing.
And this can play out in any relationship, not just romantic ones.
Totally. Families, friendships, even workplaces.
It's important to be aware of those patterns
To establish healthy boundaries.
and to take responsibility for our own emotions.
Without trying to control others.
Speaking of boundaries, maybe the biggest one we all face is death.
Wow, yeah. Heavy stuff.
Manson tackles this head on in chapter 9, and then you die.
Oh, that's a powerful chapter.
It really resonated with me because I lost a close friend when I was younger.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
His death really forced me to confront my own mortality.
And the fragility of life.
It made me reevaluate my priorities.
It makes you think about what truly matters.
Exactly. And Manson connects this to our values.
How so?
He talks about Ernest Becker's work on immortality project.
Oh, yeah. That idea that we create these legacies to transcend our own death.
And Manson suggests that our immortality projects are basically our values in disguise.
The things we believe will give our lives
The
meaning.
things we hope to be remembered for.
But those projects can also become a source of anxiety.
Right, because we become so attached to
We fear failure, rejection.
anything that threatens our sense of legacy. Yeah, it's like we forget to actually live our lives,
We're so focused on achieving this grand vision.
that we miss out on the present moment.
And that's where Manson challenges us to consider what truly matters if we're all going to die anyway.
What's the point of chasing superficial things?
What legacy do we really want to leave behind?
It's about shifting our focus from the external to the internal.
From achieving some grand vision to simply living a life that aligns with our values,
It's about finding meaning and purpose in the present moment.
rather than chasing some distant goal,
It's about embracing the beauty and brevity of life.
and making the most of the time we have.
And Manson reminds us that we have a choice.
We can either let the fear of death control us,
Or we can use it as fuel to live a more authentic and fulfilling life.
a life that's true to ourselves.
And that's a powerful message, I think.
Absolutely, it's a reminder that we have agency.
Even in the face of death.
We can choose how we respond to life's challenges.
And find meaning and purpose in our journey.
That's the true art of not giving a feck.
Choosing what matters and letting go of the rest.
Embracing life's imperfections.
Living with intention.
I think that's a great place to wrap up part 2.
Definitely a lot to digest.
We've covered some heavy topics today.
But also some really inspiring ones,
Stay tuned for part 3
where we'll explore even more of Manson's insights.
and see how they can help us navigate the complexities of life.
So until then, keep those fucks in check.
And we'll see you soon. All right, picking up where we left off.
Talking about the power of choice.
Even in the face of, well, everything.
Manson makes this really interesting point about responsibility.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. It's not always about fault.
Right, even when something's not our fault.
We're still responsible for how we
There's that-
respond
We always have a choice.
and how we react to things.
Exactly.
He tells this story about a breakup
Oh, yeah. Where he realized he was blaming his ex.
for his own unhappiness.
Right, even though she wasn't really the problem.
It was his reaction to the situation.
And once he realized that,
He was able to take ownership of his own happiness.
powerful stuff.
Really makes you think about all the times we blame others.
For things that are ultimately our own responsibility.
And that kind of ties into what he calls victimhood chic.
Victimhood chic. What's that?
It's like this tendency to focus on being a victim.
To compete for who's had it worse.
Yeah. And while it's important to acknowledge real suffering,
This constant focus on victimhood can be, well, not helpful.
it can prevent us from moving forward.
And finding solutions.
It creates a culture of blame and resentment.
Instead of understanding and collaboration,
So what's the antidote to this victimhood chic?
Manson suggests radical honesty.
Well, that's a good one. Being truthful with ourselves and others.
Owning up to our mistakes, our imperfections,
Having those tough conversations.
without blaming or getting defensive,
It's about being vulnerable, authentic,
even when it's uncomfortable.
and it requires us to question our own beliefs.
To be open to the possibility that we might be wrong.
Exactly. It's about curiosity, not certainty.
Being open to new information, new perspectives.
Even if they challenge our existing worldview.
It's about growth, about learning.
And that brings us back to choosing our struggles.
Embracing discomfort as a path to fulfillment.
Aligning our actions with our values.
And speaking of values,
Manson talks about better values versus shitty values.
right, so what are some examples of those better values?
Well, he suggests they should be grounded in reality
Socially constructive.
and within our control,
It's not about chasing external validation.
or material possessions,
It's about making a positive impact.
contributing to something larger than ourselves.
And remember the failure-success paradox.
Oh, yeah. Failure being a necessary part of success.
He uses the example of Picasso.
Who kept creating art even when he was already famous.
He wasn't afraid to experiment, to fail,
Because he was focused on the process.
not just the outcome.
It's a great lesson for all of us.
To embrace the messiness of life,
And not be afraid to try new things.
even if it means failing along the way.
And finally, we have the do something principle.
Oh yeah, action over inaction.
It's about taking those small steps.
Even when we don't have all the answers.
Because often, the answers reveal themselves along the way.
So what are some key takeaways from our deep dive?
Choose your struggles. Embrace discomfort.
Be radically honest with yourself and others.
And remember, Action often precedes motivation.
Don't be afraid to fail, to experiment.
And most importantly, choose your values wisely.
Because in the end, that's what truly matters.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the subtle art of not giving a feck.
It's been a thought-provoking journey.
Remember, it's not about being indifferent
It's about caring deeply about the things that truly matter.
and letting go of the rest.
So go out there and live a life that's true to yourself.
And don't forget to choose your fucks wisely.
We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.
Bye for now.